You're very welcome back to the show. Now, as you may already know, we've teamed up with Energia for a 5-part series to help you at home save energy and money on your bills.
Today we are talking about insulation, and here to share his magical advice is Irish and Sun independent tech expert Adrian Weckler. Adrian, there is money flowing out of walls and roofs all around the country.
It is seeping out of our roofs, of our walls, our windows, our doors. So like me, if you had a house and you turn the heat off and you notice it got freezing in about 30 minutes, there's probably one reason above all else for that, and that is you don't have proper insulation. Now, you're literally throwing money away. So the average heating bill every year is between about 1,200 and 2,000 euro. You're literally throwing about 500 euro out the window because you don't have
the insulation will do two jobs, though. It will keep the heat in, and it will keep the cold that's outside out.
That's exactly right. So there are a few basic types of insulation you could do. And it doesn't cost a bomb to do your basics. So you'll start with your attic insulation. That could cost you well under €1,000, and all that really is putting the likes of rock wool up there. You can actually inject stuff up in your attic to fill in the cavities, and that could save you 10–20% a year in your heating bill. Plus, you get a grant for it. We've been talking before about things like smart thermostats and boilers. For the likes of attics insulation, it might cost you €800 or €900, but you're going to get a grant of €300 from the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, the SEAI.
And everyone's entitled to that.
Everyone's entitled to that. Now, there is a bit of a catch. You are supposed to use a proper contractor to get that grant.
Of course, somebody is registered.
So you can't do that yourself.
You can't. You can actually do it yourself, but it's up to you to figure out whether or not you're going to make the savings. If it was me, I would definitely get a contractor in.
Plus yourself, you mightn't do it as well. So again, you're kind of going against the grain there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the attic is obviously the first, air rising and all that. What about walls? And let's talk about an old house.
Yeah, so walls is actually the main area where heat seeps out. Now there's actually 3 ways that you can insulate your walls. The easiest way, if you're lucky enough, you may have a house that was built with cavity walls. That's, in other words, the wall of your house is actually 2 separate walls with a gap in between. And what they can do, they can come along and literally inject insulation. Yeah, absolutely. Beading foam, etc. in there.
And that expands and blocks the cavity.
That expands, and that has a massive effect on your insulation and your heating. And that, again, you're looking at about €1,000 to €2,000. So you'd think about it, but you're not talking about a major job there.
And there's a grant for that as well.
There is a grant. That's €300 again for that grant. So again, it's well worth it. Now, where it starts to get tricky is if you don't have a cavity wall. Let's say you have an older house and let's say there's stone blocks.
It's solid stone. Okay.
Solid stone. You've 2 options there. You can do what they call dry lining, which is your internal wall insulation, or you can do, which is the biggest job, external insulation. Now that's going to cost your internal job is going to cost €5,000, €6,000, €7,000.
Are you talking now, Adrian, when you say internal, that's an extra piece of sheeting or different things on the inside?
That's exactly what you're talking about. What you literally do is you take your internal wall in a sitting room or a hall or anywhere where there's an external facing wall, and you literally put insulation boards over that. You're taking a few centimetres off your square footage. But again, the results are really, really good. And it's more or less the same principle with your external insulation. You're literally putting, boards on the outside of your house, and then you're finishing it typically with a silicone finish, silicone render. So you're going to get quite a smooth render. Now,
that must be dear, though, I'd say, is it?
That's dear. The external insulation is €10,000 up. Now, it depends on what kind of house you have as well. It's cheaper for a smaller terraced house or even an apartment. For a detached house, it's more expensive. But the grants are much bigger the bigger your house is.
Adrian, if you've got natural damp in the sense of the old walls that are just built without hardly any insulation and probably not enough concrete between them anyway. Will that outside insulation work for that?
Both that and yes, and also the internal dry lining will work as well.
You need both nearly to get it right, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I talked about €300 grant for your attic insulation. It's up to €4,500 for an
for looking at your external. Half then, up to half.
Well, you're certainly looking up to a quarter or a third of it anyway. And one of the areas that not doing this can really bite you. This happened to me. We moved house last year and we got a BER F rating. And that's because our house was rubbish in insulation. It cost me at least €10,000 when I sold the house.
Of the price of the house?
Of the price of the house. And it would have only cost me maybe 1,500 € to actually get it done.
So if we were doing
place.
this 6 months ago, you'd have saved yourself €9,000.
€9,000 and maybe more in today's market, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Adrian, BER and the ratings, what BER do you have that you need to insulate your house, if you know what I mean? Is it a BER of whatever and below that you should insulate your house?
Well, typically, you're almost talking about market conditions there. Our BER rating was F, which is terrible, which probably turned some potential buyers away. The house we moved into, by the way, is a newly built house with a BER A rating, so we're all thrilled now.
Okay.
But if you have anything less than a C rating, you should really consider this. And it's not just the money you're saving as well, by the way. You can do what's called a deep retrofit. You can do the whole house, internal, external. Maybe you replace your windows with triple glazed windows. Maybe you do something with your floor as well. That can cost 30 grand, 40 grand. Now, if you talk to any contractors, they will tell you the reason that most people do that is not just for the money, it's actually for comfort.
Yeah.
People, we're coming into the cold season now, and quite apart from any money you'll save, it's a pain in the neck to have to wake up in the morning to a cold house.
We're not used to those damp houses that were around a few years ago.
But a lot of country houses, I mean, I know even our own house at home, we needed to do work and we did.
Yep.
But it's any house that's built like that, even houses that were built in the 70s, that, you know, to be honest, that are stone-built houses, that have a lot of air coming through them. Even from I think the foundations have a lot to answer for these houses.
But even in the 80s and 90s, you're talking about BER ratings, they're all around the sea.
They really are. The key date was between 2003 and 2006. If your house was built after that, the building regulations would have kicked in, and you probably have a toasty house with proper insulation, like the one that we just bought. But our last house was built in 1960, and it was a disaster.
You know what? You go for those houses because it's got charm and all that
Very
type of thing.
much so,
Of course, you're drawn in by that, but it costs an awful lot of money to run those kind of houses. So you can choose from various types of insulation, as you said, out there. Is there some particularly cheaper than others and still work as effectively, or do you just need to shop around for your particular house?
Yeah, I mean, you're going on a sliding scale, starting at the top of the house in the attic, and that's going to cost you typically maximum of about €1,000.
Okay, so it depends what you do. Yeah.
The further you come down the house and the more space you're actually addressing, the more expensive it gets. If, as I said, if you're lucky enough to have a house with cavity walls, and by the way, you know, we're not going to know whether our house is a cavity wall. You do need to get a contractor to come out and probably tell you that. But if you're lucky enough to have that kind of a house, you're
losing money at the moment.
You're losing money at the moment, but it's really cheap. It's really cost effective to actually get it done.
I think the fact that the grants are there, Adrian, why not do it now?
Absolutely.
And the thing about those grants, they may not be around forever.
No.
Nobody knows that as well.
No.
So it's a good idea to look into
up to €4,500.
Great. Adrian, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Now, for more information on how to insulate your home, check out energia.ie.